Chad, there's a video I wanted us to take a look at. Destiny's quality went down. Destiny 1 versus Destiny 2, art, audio, and more. And I've actually have brought this up before a few times, where essentially I felt like, for instance, the New Light mission or the intro for the New Light mission. It just seems like the tone, especially when you enter to that fallen area, it just seemed to be missing something from the D1 version of it. You know what I'm saying? Let's listen to this video though.
Destiny and Destiny 2 are quite different from each other. Oftentimes, people ask what the differences between the two games are, but the average Guardian doesn't really articulate these differences too well, and they just kind of resort to the games felt different. So in this video, I'm going to go over all the major differences between the games, covering art, sound, gameplay and game feel, level and game design, progression, balance, and other miscellaneous things I could think of. This is going to be a very critical comparison between the two, focusing more on objective things rather than subjective, so keep that in mind. Starting with one of the biggest, art. Now there are two things that go into a game's visuals, the graphical fidelity and the art direction. Most people know that graphical fidelity just means something looks more detailed than the other, but art direction is how you actually cater your art to work together. It's the reason a game like Minecraft with very simple graphics is loved by many, because it has such a strong art direction, even though its fidelity isn't the best. So, with that knowledge, Destiny 2 undoubtedly has better graphical fidelity than the first game. You take two of the same guns, put them side by side, and it looks more detailed in Destiny 2. The same goes with armors and specific environment pieces, like looking at the same rock or looking at the same staircase, and it'll look more detailed in D2. Again, it's no competition that D2 has better graphical fidelity than...
And naturally it should be. I mean, Destiny 1's on old-gen consoles.
D1. But here's the thing. D1 undoubtedly has a better art direction than Destiny 2. Let's go over some of the locations and simply compare things that are in both games, as that's the most fair comparison. Starting with the moon. In Destiny 1, you can see the color, lighting, and skybox of the moon looks really nice. Go over to the exact same location in Destiny 2, and the moon looks more detailed, but it becomes a dull, colorless surface. And the skybox, while not devoid of detail, takes a big hit. On the moon in D1, you can see large orbital space stations in the sky, and in D2, it's simply gone. The same continues with the Hellmouth, with its green pits, portals, and fog, making the area look epic and eerie at the exact same time. This loses most of the particle effects and becomes a more simple area with just basic green fog and no other visual effects in Destiny 2. It's a little sad, but in some comparison videos, they show Destiny 1 on the old gen, like PS3 and Xbox 360. Then it's regular or upgraded graphics, which most people experienced on the PS4 or Xbox One. And then they show Destiny 2's graphics, and you can clearly see the downgrade of the art style. And because I know some people will mention it in the comments, I tested every single area that I saw in other videos just to make sure they were accurate, running them on the highest settings in Destiny 2 on PC, so this is as good as D2 can look. Destiny 1 had skyboxes with day and night cycles.
Dude, there was just like a level of presence that Destiny 1 had in its art style that just, I don't know, it was just so impactful. I don't know why this change was made. I just don't know why pull back on that. You know what I'm saying? It did like D1 had like a level of aura to it. It's called field of view. No, it's just nostalgia. I tell you this, again, the example I gave was the intro mission for New Light players, where the ghost revives you and you walk in. There was like a creepy element to that back in D1, because you couldn't quite see the Fallen. You didn't really know what was all in there. Whereas the D2 version, you walk in, the way the lighting and everything is, you could pretty much see all of the Fallen. You could see the enemies there. There's no element of surprise when the enemies are all revealed, when the ghost goes up, things like that.
As well as different weather effects, allowing you to see different areas at different times of the day. And this was the case for all planets. Day and night in the Cosmodrome, a day and night on the moon, with a more dark blue at night, and brighter grays as the sun shines down during the day. Day and night on Venus, with different storm and weather patterns. Even interactive stuff depending on how you hold your weapon. You can hold it up to the sun, and you can even see it a little bit better with a little bit of that red shining through. It's pretty cool. On top of that, as time goes by, the skybox changes with the sun changing its position. Destiny 2 simply doesn't have that. To D2's credit, it does have the sun rotating around in the moon skybox, but that's it. On top of that, the details in the distance allowed for the world to feel large and expansive in D1, and most of those are simply removed in D2. And this is the case for both the Earth and locations on the moon. Wind and other effects that made the world feel beautiful and alive are mostly gone in the second game as well. And sadly, it gets worse as you take into account other world interactions and VFX. Both games have ripples as you jump in the water or wade through it, but D1 has these ripples or wind effects as you ride over with any sparrow. D2 simply doesn't. Rainbows can be seen depending on the lighting and angle you're looking at waterfalls, not the case in D2. The lighting in D1 was very deliberate. Just look at how the Court of Oryx at the start of King's Fall looks. In Destiny, you have those eerie colors, the lamp at the top swaying, changing the shadows in the room, and the green and orange creating a strong contrast, making the ship feel like this eerie hive insect location. You can just see that in every nook and cranny there is attention to detail everywhere. The same area in D2 looks like this. Again, this is on the highest settings. You can see it's just dull and gray with no additional detail or lighting at all. It looks as if the models were just ported in without texture or color. Everything that made that scene work in Destiny 1 is completely gone now. Even in areas where they implemented everything really nicely, like the outside of Vogue. Still has more lightning, clouds, and attention to detail in the first game. I already covered this area a little bit.
And it was accessible on the destination itself, which is something that I wish Bungie had continued. I think for me, I wouldn't even have known Vault of Glass existed, especially early on, if I didn't come across a team that was actively doing the unlocking the door portion of Vault of Glass. Now, yeah, as far as like Court of Oryx, maybe it looks that way. Somebody's bringing up the fact that maybe it's because Oryx is dead. Sure, I guess. Lulu, again, without a doubt, Destiny 2 is a sexy game. And I mean, that's one of the good things going for it. But there was a style or you know, just a presence that Destiny 1 had that Destiny 2 seems to be missing on the art side of things. Now, could it be nostalgia speaking to me? Possibly.
But I'll mention it again and show more one-to-one here, where you can see the lightning that lights up the surrounding clouds in D1, not in D2. The meteorite showers can change size and locations in the...
See, like this stuff right here, this stuff reminds me so much of Reach.
That lights up the surrounding
lightning
clouds
and stuff.
In D1, not in D2.
Right here, you see the lightning, but it's not lighting up the clouds.
Meteorite showers can change size and locations in the first game. Again, not in D2. The blue sulfur on the volcano just looks better in the first game. I don't really know what they did in D2. And the sun can change location and move in real time, which additionally allows for day and night versions of the area when you run the raid. Again, not in D2. Little things like dragonflies flying around certain areas, or even butterflies in the garden areas of the tower, birds that fly away when you get close, or cockroaches that run away when you point your weapon at them. D2 has little things like this, like the fish in the Pale Heart, but these appear to be more random rather than interactive. It's not like there's no art direction in Destiny 2, but you can tell it took a heavy hit in comparison to the first game. While the lighting is more realistic and the graphics more detailed, it's also more generic. Even the devs have said this, that they focus more on quick content rather than quality content, which shows in the art. But environments aren't the only things. What about the enemies, weapons, and armors? Well, with armors, on
the topic of like art style, and again, that last point being made, that is one of the biggest things working against Destiny is Bungie's in a situation where every time they add content to the game, see, it's not like other games where everything is continually building on top of itself. It's add, subtract, add, subtract. You see where I'm coming from? It's like it's constant like adding and removing of content. And so every time like Bungie gets ready to bring whatever new activity to us, there's like this, of course, there's the thought process of how much effort is being put into this. How long is this thing even going to stay in the game? And of course, if it's not going to be something that stays in the game for more than a couple of years, they're not going to put as much effort into it. And that's from a gameplay design, art design, like everything. You see where I'm coming from? Why make it look best? It can when it's going to get removed anyways in a year. Yeah. It's really unfortunate, man. Like this is where I wish Destiny had the ability, had the infrastructure to be a forever game, to actually have the ability to continually keep scaling. I don't know, man. Like how does Final Fantasy 14 do it? How does WoW do it? Somebody like, and I'm asking this genuinely, like just asking you guys, how does World of Warcraft do it? RuneScape, I understand it can pull it off because it's just, that kind of game. How does Warframe do it? Yeah, how does Warframe? Graphically, Destiny is more complex. I don't know, Les. Warframe is a beautiful game. Warframe is a sexy game. And it's also somehow, like in terms of scope, Warframe is a ginormous game. And then you have all the customization that you could do, like with the clan dojos and things like that. Warframe is not as detailed as D2. Bullshit. Guys, I don't know which version of Warframe you're looking at. You go pull up Warframe right now. Take a look at even just your character. Go inside of your orbiter. Warframe is one of the most detailed games I've ever played. Warframe's engine was built for PC first, so it's able to be more flexible. Destiny was built on PC. It was made with consoles in mind. Originally, Destiny was just made for consoles. Yeah. All right, let's continue.
I don't think I need to explain, as it's pretty much universally agreed upon, that the armors in Destiny 1 just looked better than the armor in Destiny 2. And most of the best D2 armors are simply D1 armors or D1 reskins. Weapons are again more detailed in Destiny 2. Like, they straight up just have more detailed textures, but lack a lot of the particle systems that D1 weapons had. Thunderlord firing demonstrates this really well, where you can see more lightning and flash effects in the first game than in the second game. Enemy weapons follow this as well. A Hive Knight with the Boomer gun will have his gun glow and have this mist emit from it in D1. It does this in D2 as well, but not to the same effect due to lighting. Muzzle flash from enemies firing weapons, and lightning particles on the Dreg's weapons. These are pretty much the same across both games, but the servitor's buff is actually fairly different. The Taken have these scrolling textures, vibrant rays and particle effects, and twitchy animations, giving them so much personality. This in Destiny 2 has been changed to constant still textures, more basic beams and other VFX, and more generic animations that don't twitch as much.
Okay.
The shapes and designs have also changed. Destiny 1 was very sharp, jagged.
They did twitch a lot more back in D1. Y'all remember that? The Taken did twitch a lot more. Well, you know, maybe they toned that back because it was harder to land a headshot.
And had this dark and gritty feel to it. It was like a bleak world filled with a little bit of hope. These same enemies in Destiny 2 are more round and smooth, giving them a less menacing shape and design in most one-to-one cases. But of course, Destiny 2 does have some sharper enemies as well. Oryx is honestly a perfect example of this strange art change. In D1, he was menacing, had a dark color palette that was gloomy, handpicked to fit the mood and the atmosphere.
God, dog,
in D2,
man.
He's a vibrant and colorful character, essentially killing the ominous vibe that he had. Destiny 1's art direction, it's as if concept art had come to light, and I can't say the same thing about Destiny 2. There's even more to compare, but let's keep the topics moving since art isn't everything, as there's also sound design.
Let's just go back to Oryx real quick. Tell me which one impacts you more.
Art change. In D1, he was menacing, had a dark color palette that was gloomy, handpicked to fit the mood and the atmosphere. In D2, he's a vibrant and colorful character, essentially killing the ominous vibe that he had. Destiny 1's art direction,
and it's not to say like the D2 version of him looks bad. Like I think Oryx still looks good. It's just the D1 version was the scarier version for sure. I think the D2 version of Oryx still looks good. It just doesn't necessarily strike that tone that the D1 version hit.
Starting with music, since that's the most subjective, both games have really good tracks. D1 has the most iconic music with the Destiny 1 vanilla songs, but I'd say both are still top notch. And again, this isn't as objective, so let's just keep the ball rolling. Sound design, on the other hand, can be taken from a more objective look at. Both games take a very different approach on the way they do their sounds. The first game has more realistic sound for gunfire from your more real-ish looking weapons. Then the futuristic ones like the Omlon would have a more high-pitched, futuristic type sound to them.
Yeah.
And other weapons like Hake would have different sounds when they fire their pulse rifles or whatnot. Destiny 2 leans a lot more into that futuristic sound design, where pretty much all weapons have that high-pitched futuristic sound to them. The Ace of Spades demonstrates this so well, because it sounds like this in D1, and it sounds like this in D2. A very clear difference.
Wow, dude, what? I never heard this side by side.
In D1,
dude, that just sounds so meaty, right?
And it sounds like this in D2.
Again, I think the D2, kind of like Oryx, I do think the D2 sound of it is okay, but there is a difference for sure.
And this isn't the only weapon. You can just hear with both of these exotics that it sounds much higher pitched in D2 and leans more into that kind of Amalon futuristic type sound. Abilities also follow this trend too, with the Titan jetpack sounding like this in D1.
Yeah.
And like this in D2.
It's a bit muted. Yeah.
Of course, the Hunter jump also follows this as well.
Yeah.
This change in sound direction for the common stuff you'll be hearing on a daily basis when playing the game isn't really a
I also want to bring up, like, obviously this isn't like ruining the game for you, but like there's just so many elements that go into making a game immersive. And I guess the real question is like I definitely enjoy like Destiny 2's gameplay. I wouldn't want to go back to static subclasses or even the version of customizable subclasses back inside of Destiny 1, even at vanilla launch. And there's also just so many different, like, you know, quality of life features that we have present inside of Destiny 2 that would take over D1. But immersion's important. There's a lot of elements that go into that. It's just interesting to see a side-by-side comparison of the two. I wonder if he's going to show Vex Mythoclast, yeah.
Positive or a negative in a vacuum. And I say this as in a vacuum. The reason for this is because Destiny 1 has a very large range in sounds that you'll hear. Thrall are high-pitched. Certain Taken attacks are high-pitched.
God, y'all remember that?
That strike are also high-pitched. But to balance out this higher range of sounds, there is many deep sounds in the game, like certain guns, grenades have a deep echo, rocket explosions have that huge sound, giving good variety. Destiny 2, in the pursuit of its futuristic sound design, loses much of that variety. Here are the same set of sounds in Destiny 2.
They're all... Yeah. Yeah, that sounds the same.
Now, I will admit, even with less range in sound, it's still subjective as to which game you personally like the sounds of better. But you can't really deny the fact that Destiny 1 has a more dynamic range. Continuing with the argument of sound design, let's start taking into account ambient sounds and interaction sounds. This is how the Cosmodrome sounds in Destiny 1.
Oh my god.
And here it is in Destiny 2.
It's essentially nothing.
You can clearly hear that a lot of the details, like the wind and dust sounds, it's just gone in Destiny 2. Yeah. And again, this is the case with every location. Destiny 1 just has more ambient noises. As far as interactive noises go, like footsteps and sparrows, they change depending on the surface you're walking on or riding on in D1. As you can hear in these clips.
I mean, I feel the immersion too, man. Like, you feel like you're there.
If you're in a stasis field or something, the way your gun sounds actually changes as well. On top of that, your gun's echo even changes depending on the size of the room you're currently in.
Yeah.
You might have already guessed it, but this isn't the case with Destiny 2.
It's the same. Yeah.
Basically,
you think it's a data issue, guys? You think it's because Bungie's like trying to consolidate or condense the game by keeping things between a certain parameters? You don't have this huge range to accommodate for. Laziness and cost. Absolutely about file size.
The sound design and additional audio you hear in D1, when we compare the exact same sounds in the exact same location, is just more immersive than it is in D2.
Right? You hear that? That's why a cursed thrall is able to sneak up on you so easily. They just... There's no noise. There's no creepy breathing, no nothing.
Moving on to gameplay and game feel. The gameplay is very different across both games. D1 is simpler and D2 is more complex in the abilities and weapons you have in your arsenal. Many people like to say D2 is faster paced, and they're correct in some aspects, but incorrect in others. More frames flashing in front of your face doesn't mean faster. Weapon reload times are pretty much identical when comparing the exact same weapon. Weapons actually swap a little bit faster in D1 when comparing the exact same weapon. Weapon scope times and the time it takes for the reticle to reappear is faster in D1. Weapon firing is about the same. The Titan skate and jetpack is much more faster and mobile in D1. The same goes for the Warlock's movement and the Hunter's jump as well when comparing their baseline in the way that...
And I think that's just because we're living off of the design choices for D2 vanilla. If you remember, the devs on the Crucible team at the beginning of Destiny 2, they designed everything around slowing the player down, static subclasses, static roles to try to like streamline the game into this competitive PvP experience. As you know, it blew up in everyone's face. It was not like that. Well, I mean, I guess you could say it was quote unquote competitive, but it wasn't fun to play.
Most casual players will use it. Running speed is pretty much identical when comparing the slowest to the slowest. Turning times and overall movement speed is again pretty similar. And I know some people will mention this, both games have very high movement tech that are insanely quick. Now Destiny 2 has a bunch more other movement abilities in its arsenal, but again we're comparing stuff that is in both games, and in which case Destiny 1 is generally a little bit quicker. As for game feel, there is more juice in D1. And juice is a common term used by developers, which just kind of explains how the game overall feels. A juicier game is generally better. The way weapons reload, pretty much none cross the center of your screen in D1 to not block gameplay. Weapons in D2 don't care that much about blocking your gameplay. Weapon swap and bobbing is a little bit more interactive as you jump and walk around in D1, making the weapon feel like it's moving with you. Destiny 2 is more mechanical and stiff. The melee attacks also appear to have a little bit more oomph to them. This is primarily because of the field of view rather than the actual effects in screen shake, because they're pretty much the same across both games. As far as game and level design, progression, and balance...
Can I just stop real quick? Why is it that D1 weapons, even the most basic looking Destiny 1 weapon, just looked meaner, man? Looked meaner, in my opinion, looked better. than many of the D2 weapons. Is it a lighting and detail? I think it's just a maybe weapon design. Could be. Again, I have to stop myself multiple times and be like, Cross, this is nostalgia speaking to you.
Let's go. The levels in Destiny 1 are more simple and easier to understand, while also being more basic in their mission objectives. Destiny 2 has more complex levels and systems, requiring more movement in your gameplay. Raids are more simple in D1, and raids in D2 are more complex and mechanically heavy. Destiny is more focused on player skill rather than builds and weapons. There are for sure better god roll weapons that make meta perks to look for on your armor that will improve your gameplay, but at the end of the day, player skill is the most important factor in both PvE and PvP. Now, player skill is definitely important in D2, and I think the argument could be made that it is the most important thing in D2 as well. But the gap between the best weapons and worst weapons, or best and worst gear in D2, is so much larger than it was in the first game. So the trash weapons in D1 were still usable to an extent, but the trash weapons in D2 are just so much more trash. And the god tier weapons in D2 are just way more overpowered, which in turn puts slightly more focus on loadout over player skill in some situations for Destiny 2. Both games are difficult in their own right. D2 has more mechanics and systems that you have to learn, as previously mentioned. But in D1, you were more like a glass cannon, being able to kill very quickly but also die extremely quickly, quicker than the hardest game modes of D2. DPS and whatnot is relative, as you can one-phase the hardest bosses in D1 if your team is good enough, and you can do the exact same thing in D2. So while D2 has bigger numbers, meaning higher DPS, that doesn't actually mean it.
Keep in mind, this video was made a year ago, so he's mentioning bigger numbers. This is before the damage numbers got squished.
Anything significant when you translate it between the two games. Other miscellaneous differences are of course the game's monetization and update or content releases, where D1 only charged for the DLC and all other content and updates were given for free, funded by the Eververse shop. And of course, everything in Eververse could be earned completely for free. Destiny 2 charges for the DLC, and all other content updates have to be purchased. That said, these updates are much more frequent than in D1. Then the Eververse is far more of a heavy focus in D2, but the items can be obtained through a lot of grinding. When D1 released content, you could do all of it as soon as you wanted, no drip feed included. Destiny 2 obviously has that drip feeding content, though this is changing in the near future. Here is where D2 gets a lot of...
Again, this video was made a year ago. There's a lot of optimism on this front. I'm not going to comment on that. We're just going to keep listening.
Wins with the numerous quality of life improvements that it has that D1 does not. Like multiple landing locations on a planet, being able to...
We're at that point where we missed the drip feed. We are now in no feed. I would take the drip back today.
Launch any activity without having to go to orbit. Having a codex where you can see any and all weapons, armors, and gear within D2. D1 only had this feature for a couple things like ships, sparrows, exotics, shaders, etc. Yeah. Speaking of shaders, shaders can be applied per item and even added to weapons in D2. There's appearance slots for armors, allowing you to look how you want. Yep. And I mentioned this a bit earlier, but there's way more weapon variety in D2, having different types and whatnot that do not exist in D1. Not only that, but the weapons tend to have a lot more wacky and unique things that they can do in D2. The same goes for class abilities, having more unique and wacky things that you can do, and a couple more improvements in D2 that are simply not in D1. Destiny 1 honestly does most things better when compared one-to-one, thanks to its greater attention to detail and care that just made the world feel more immersive and complete. Destiny 2 is a bigger and newer game, with more to offer in terms of gameplay and diversity, and of course having that next-gen benefit like 60 FPS and higher graphical fidelity. The purpose of this video was to try and give as objective as a comparison as possible between the two, while going into as much detail as possible without dragging the video on forever. But there are probably some things I might have missed. At the end of the day, it is up to you to decide which game you like better, as they're both good in their own right. But hopefully this video gives you some super solid evidence that you can use to compare some of the differences between the games. I've got more Destiny content coming out soon, and other Destiny videos currently on my channel that I uploaded recently, so consider subscribing and checking those out if you're interested.
Good video. No, that was a solid video. I have never really sat down, like, again, Destiny 1 it just had a presence about it. I have to like remove myself from the the nostalgia before really making these calls. But seeing things side by side right here really speaks volumes. Now, how this has any effect on Destiny 2, it won't. Destiny 2 and where we're at and its color palette, its design choices, like I think that's just how it is. It's just interesting to still see these two things side by side. And if we were to get a Destiny 2 vanilla, or not a Destiny 2 vanilla, a Destiny Classic, I really don't think it would bring about that same level of quality that D1 originally had. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if it's pretty much like Destiny 2, if they ever did something like that. With that being said, though, there is like when I watch D1 gameplay, or if I watch D1, skyboxes, its art and everything, to me, I see so much of reach in it. And whereas D2 is really pulled away from that. And perhaps it was, the jump to PC, going to new gen consoles. Perhaps it's a data issue where Bungie is trying to consolidate data, and for instance, like audio not having as big of a range. Who knows? I will say this though, if we ever did get a Destiny Classic, I really wish they would nail like all these different elements that made us fall in love with Destiny 1.
Slap that like button like your mama told you right.